Check, quick sound check. Can everybody hear me loud and clear? What's going on, Coach Paul?
Hey, Coach Jay. Good job today at Top Step TV. You are the face of Top Step TV now. Every time I turn it on, you're there. Great job.
Feels like it. Couple more days. I'll be taking over slow markets again tonight, and then again on fast markets. And then I was talking to Coach Paul in the green room that next Friday I'll be taking off for that reason. So it's always awesome to be on Top Step TV, but we talk about it as traders needing to sometimes step away, and it's been great so far. Wish I could have traded a little bit better, but I think good segments overall for sure. How was your day, Coach?
Kind of boring. Made my money last night. Uh, we had a urgency trade in the platinum, and I really didn't do much. I, Equities was a classic uh, flatlined VWAP. Range bound traders should dominate today. Um, but other than that, I stayed out of trouble.
Just staying out of trouble is good. I found the trouble for you. I went and found it for you, Coach Paul. So trouble didn't hit your doorstep. I went and found it for you. I had a very
Thank
negative
you.
day today. I think this is probably one of the worst days I've had in a little while. And uh, it's okay. Account is still active. It's We can come back, trade tomorrow. I'm gonna journal this one and then forget about it. But welcome everyone to At the Buzzer, our market recap. If this is your first time here, I'm Coach Jay. That is Coach Paul. The goal of this segment is to review what happened in the markets for the day. We may talk about some markets that you have not traded before, but we believe our goal as traders is to identify opportunity, see how we could have taken advantage of those opportunities while managing our risk. As far as news goes, we did have some news early this morning. We know we had Tesla earnings last night. We saw Tesla up 12% during At the Buzzer yesterday, and I think at one point was up 20% on the day. We also did have jobless claims coming out, 227,000 uh, jobless claims when the forecast was 241,500, so a little bit better than expected, but still a pretty big number. Still a pretty big number. Am I reading that right? Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
After that, we had the S&P Services PMI and manufacturing PMI numbers come out, um, pretty much in line with expectations as well. New home sales in line with expectations as well. And then we did have a nat gas number coming out, and there was uh, what was expected was 66 billion, and the reported was 80 billion. If you look at nat gas, which was our biggest percentage mover on the day, there was a reaction to that news, Coach. Um, Any comments on the news, or should we move on to the markets?
I have no comments, but it was interesting. Natural gas, once again, we had that big move yesterday in the afternoon, and we had it again today. Um, Great contract to trade. It seems like it's always on the top percentage movers.
Think
Um,
I'm
so
not keeping score, but I think that's either 4 or 5 days now, or 4 out of the last 5 days where it's on the top percentage movers, either to the upside or the downside. Nat gas is a mover. Let's get into it. Let's talk about the top percentage movers on the day. There are about 35 different markets that we can trade with Top Step accounts. And to the downside, we had crude oil down 0.42%, soybean meal down 1.3%, and lean hogs down 1.9% for our biggest percentage mover to the downside. To the upside, we had the NASDAQ up 0.87%. Didn't feel like it. Soybean oil up 2.24%, and nat gas, our biggest percentage mover to the upside, up 5% on the day for our biggest percentage mover. To round out the top four, we had gold up 0.69%, and the S&Ps up 0.27%. Where do we want to start, Coach?
well, might as well start with the equities and
Start
get
with
it
the
over with.
equities, get them out the way. Um, NASDAQ was on that top percentage movers list, right? It came in at number 3. But like we've been saying all week, London is having all the fun. And it's kind of what happened again today. Not the biggest percentage move to the upside, but a lot of the move happened in the overnight session. And here we are. Here's that first 30 minute. We're below the 200 moving average on the 30-minute chart, coach. We have the first 30 minutes framed
Mhm.
out, and there was the long.
Yeah. And it did it the grinding way. Yeah, it was by default a rally. Um,
Leave by name.
drifted up. But it made sure all the longs had a sweat. Um, I really didn't see much in that for myself. The VWAP I had was in the middle of the range after the first hour and kind of just stayed there. But we talk about, range traders should have a great day today. Um, and that was, believe it or not, it's wild that it's in a range. Like I said, there wasn't much going on in many markets. So maybe by default it got onto one of the percentage leaders, but
Not much else was moving outside of that. Overnight was a decent trade, right? Once we broke out of this range, we did have some news in Japan that sent the Nikkei to the moon. And I think the other equities kind of followed it. But then once we got into the news, we had jobless claims coming out earlier today. This was probably one of the really good trades that I took today. Probably just over traded today. I think that's what the issue was. But we had this jobless claims candle, 7:30 Central Time, and uh, we've talked about doing this before, but framing out that news candle, attaching a VWAP to it. Um, when we established that news range, the high of the range 20,472, the low of the range 20,383, and attaching a VWAP to that news, it was pretty flat right after the print. So my idea was trade it like a range bound market. What's the likelihood that we get an extension outside of this news candle before the New York Open? So my first trade of the day this morning, I did take a trade last night. First trade of the day was a short at 20,420. Right? What is that trade based on? Uh, we established the news range. I can risk I can risk making a new high, right? So I can risk, about 20 points here, um, and volume not going with it. And if I look at it, I could have just left that trade on all day. Back to the
it always looks easy, doesn't it?
coulda, woulda, shoulda, right? I did take it off. In hindsight, there are a couple of things that I do want to point out because while this was a range bound day, I want to show you what that range was. So what was the first day this week? The 21st.
Monday.
Uh, okay,
I
so
have a flair. I have a flair for the obvious.
the white line here is the weekly VWAP, and I'm going to put another one on here, and it's going to be the green line, and that is going to be our monthly VWAP. So when you look at
Yeah.
this way, we are in a VWAP pinch. If you read the book on Anchored VWAP, Brian Shannon talks about this a lot. And a lot of what he says is when you're in this pinch, don't do anything, which I don't disagree because I think he's as much of a trend trader as I am. But for a range bound trader, are your extremes of the range. Now, they're extremes of the range, the way the NASDAQ likes to make extremes of the range, where it's going to run it 20 points on each side. But it's giving you an area of opportunity. And that 420 short, when I look at it in hindsight and in review, that 420 short was outside of that pinch, but we never got a close outside of it. So targeting the other side of the pinch is not a bad idea. It was not the easiest trade. Look at all these wicks, and these are 30-minute charts, 30-minute candles, but a short outside of that pinch for a trade to the other side was a real opportunity today. And then we see we got it the other way as well.
It's interesting too, Coach. The 20-day moving average is right along that same area. I have it at 2302. Let's just call it 20,300. And it's holding it today when we bounced off of it. So the pinch is on.
Yes, it is. And ultimately, what happens out of these is as this gets tighter, we build up a lot more volume in this range because there is still trading going on, but likely an accumulation for a break in either direction. And then once we eventually get that break and close, it should be a pretty strong move. And I don't know, but there might be a few catalysts in the next couple of weeks that could give
Mm.
us the move out of here. Um, but for right now, very range bound market. I think where I got caught up was looking for this break. I did take a short, another short, trying to break and hold through here, but we can see the indecision at this monthly VWAP and not holding below it. Uh, Anything else on the NASDAQ, Coach?
No, key point is that 20-day moving average. By the way, we settled below it yesterday, bounced off it. We're in that pinch. We could grind for the next 2 weeks. Um, so, but at the point right now is no matter what your style is, focus on your bottom line, execute your plan, and do everything you can not to overtrade. Because if your mind is set is I got to make money, it usually ends up being a bad day. Uh, from my experience. So just I would, I'm glad you brought that up. We're in the pinch. Wait for the breakout before you get any aggressive.
Best thing I'll note, daily ATR on the NASDAQ after today was 297 points. Today's range, high to low, was 165 points. Now, if we understand how averages work, we're due for an outlier day at some point. We did have one yesterday. Yesterday's range was 451 points. So not a surprise that we have a contracted day, right? If you have an outlier in one direction, you usually have an outlier in the other direction. So we're due for either an at range or potentially above range day because of how consolidated today was.
It's a good point. Average true range is melting. It's down to 279 in the NASDAQ and 57 in the S&P. It's pretty tight. One of the things as that average true range gets lower and lower, which is a function of volatility, when it breaks out, it's going to break, like we just talked, it's going to break out pretty um, pretty hard when it decides a direction.
100%. I got nothing else on the Nasdaq. We can look at the ES, but it was pretty much the same story here. The ES, the monthly VWAP on the ES was 58.28. We can see lows of the day was 58.25. And I did post about this on Twitter. I need to rebound tweets. That these levels were going to be important. These levels are going to be important, and we can see it today being very important. I think we had, trying to just remember, the Russell and the Dow, maybe a little bit more intraday movement, but still very consolidated on
Oh,
all of these markets.
nothing further to say there. We do have a question
Okay.
from Mohammed Madawi. Where did you get that tool that you draw by VWAP?
It is in the forecasting and measurement tools on the drawing tools on the left side. 5 down on the drawing tools, you're going to click on the arrow, And then halfway down that menu, you have anchored VWAP. You can put a star next to that if you're going to use it all the time. And for me, it's up here in this little drawing panel at the top of my charts. Just click on that and click on a candle.
I think people are very interested in that. We get that question a lot. It's a great tool. Um, I, it, and it's easy to use once you know where it's at. One other question, Nelson, 357. Yeah. Hope you guys had a great day. Do you guys happen to know if Topstep has changes coming regarding XFAs? I don't. How about you, Coach?
Yeah, no, I don't know either. If there are changes coming, they will be announced on Topstep TV when they happen. But for right now, things are as they are.
Okay.
And Blue Boy has has a comment here. We get that question about the VWAP from someone once a week. It's actually once a day, but who's counting? But he says, just be a studious trader and check out all the tools at your avail. I have no problem answering the question because we have traders who, may be new to the platform and things like that. But I do recommend doing that and not just to find the anchored VWAP tool, right? See what else your platform has available to you because it might offer something that you don't even know that you need. But just by clicking around, you might find something. I think sometimes it's cool to do that because again, you might discover something that one of us don't use, right? And it could help you in your trading. So I don't mind answering that question because we need to know where it is, and it's a very useful tool. But click around, right? You might find this protractor thing and say, "Oh wow, this is what I've been looking for my entire life," um, and it was right there the whole time, right? So uh, click around, explore your platforms. You'll get a lot more comfortable with them doing that. But it's always good to ask questions as well.
Are you saying you might want that for Christmas, Coach Jay? It's coming up. Get you a big
Protractor?
box of
I
VWAP.
don't know.
Yeah,
I
big
don't know. I
box
don't
of
know.
VWAP.
Right? I I don't know how I'd use it, but yeah. Here's gold. We talked about this in slow markets last night, Coach. And I know
Hmm.
you had another urgent metals trade, so we'll talk about that one as well. Um, but here's gold. There's the urgency. 30-minute opening range last night. We left that range pretty early. I had an entry 27.31.1 and just never came and got me. It was 4 ticks away, and I should have heard the voice of Coach Paul that says, "Does your market button not work?" Um, because
You reading my mind.
yeah,
Uh,
just maybe we just need to just trade together 24/7. Yeah, but
yes.
urgent move, really nice trade. Um, And here's the urgency. And the one thing I do want to point out before we go to your platinum trade, Coach, was the volume and where the target was initially for this trade. So yesterday we talked about, let me fix this real quick. My scale. Yesterday we were talking about this high volume candle in gold. It was the highest volume that we've seen for the week. So going into last night, getting into this long here, the conservative target was 50% of this range because we know a seller came in there and we see what the market reaction was to it earlier. So we rejected at 50% during the session yesterday. We tried to trade above it, we couldn't. And then in the overnight session, we traded to it and we can see another rejection that gave us a pullback. And this is the pullback to the opening range that ultimately got us in that trade. This is the pullback to the Globex opening range. But once we start accepting price inside of that high volume candle, right, where the low of it now is acting as a support, the target changes from this 50% to the other side of that range, right? We start to use it as a support. Now it's saying, okay, well, we cleared 50%. Can we fill this entire imbalance? We did, and that would have been the trade for slow markets. I don't think I would have had a target up at 50s. But then if we see what happens for the rest of the day, VWAP starts to trend higher. We start to, we test back down to 50% of this, and of course it's not going to be a perfect test, but it's holding. And now does the high of the candle act as a support, and we just trend higher. It's a really nice move. Coach, you still there?
Yeah, that was can you hear?
I got you. I got you. Yep, we can hear you.
Yeah, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right. That was a beautiful move. I didn't even notice the gold. I had the platinum on. So, but once again, we didn't get to yesterday's highs, and we
No, we did not.
rejected halfway. Is that a halfway back trade from the all-time high?
Close. Yeah, we traded above. We
63,
traded above all-time high. Oh, from
about a
all-time highs, you said.
63%. Yeah.
About 60%.
Yes. So, that outside day is still holding, but we're still up towards the top. Tomorrow, I just feel there's something big going to come here in gold. I'm going to keep my eye closely on it. See if we can get an urgency trade or something that get a hold of. But there was once again a vicious sell-off after today's highs.
Let's pull
Come
up
on
platinum,
now.
coach, because I know that's a trade that you took. So let's pull up
Yeah.
platinum. I'll look at the 30-minute open from last night. This is funny.
What's so funny about that?
Because this looks like the most catastrophic sell-off ever, and it just stops at
The 200.
no
But by the
matter
way,
no matter where you bought this in this opening range, if your stop was on the other side, you never got stopped out today.
oh yeah,
Should you have taken profits at some point in this move? Maybe. But you'd still have a trade that's in the profit. And I think the reason I'm bringing that up is because of how high probability this setup is when it looks this urgent. Right now, nothing is going to work 100%, and everything we talk about here is for educational purposes only. Never advice to take a trade. Click the button at your own risk. But when it's this urgent, it's for a reason. So go ahead, coach. Talk us through this trade.
So by the way, put the 200 bar moving average.
Oh, my bad. 200 moving average. There we go.
So yeah, it was holding that the first half an hour. VWAP left immediately. There was a very small range, so the possibility of moving out of that range was high, but it also had a small risk. I think I risked, it was like 100. I gave it was so small, I gave it more room, $150. This is our classic urgency. And as you can see, this is a rare, there was no heat. I did not expect that, but I kept my stop in overnight. Woke up this morning. First, I wish I could do this trade every day, but this is what gets us.
I think you can do this trade every day. I think the thing is which market is going to present it and work the best. But go ahead, coach.
Yeah, yeah, maybe. I hope so. But one of the things if you get it at night, I'm out by 7 o'clock, 6:30, 7 o'clock Central. I'm just out no matter what. There's no exit. It's almost time based. And I got out. I didn't look at it. I just didn't look at it till just now. I didn't know it collapsed all the way back down. So Platinum, by the way, I kept my eye on it because it's been on your playbook. And boy, here we go again. At night, the moves are being made. At night for us. For our international audience, it might be in the evening, it might be in the afternoon, it might be in the morning, but it's outside of U.S. hours where the biggest moves are happening. That was a classic urgency trade. And how many times do we see this? It's a great trade. So once again, though, if that I left my stop in because I'm comfortable taking a scratch or keeping my original risk. But if you took a 2-to-1, 3-to-1 on that, that's a great trade still.
100%. What was the risk originally, dollar-wise? Did you go 2 ATRs? Did you go other side? Did you go make a new low?
I just said make a new low.
Make a new low.
If it made a new low, I was out because it was that cheap. 2 ATRs would have been a little. I think it would have been
5
like
points.
200. Yeah, about 200. I just to make a new low. I didn't think, if it was, especially the way that VWAP moved, there was buying. I mean, there's no deep dark mystery to the VWAP. It's a price, average price weighted with volume. Volume is the energy that drives the engine. So this had, a spark. I'll take that 10 times out of 10 and look for the 11th. So that was my only trade of the day.
All you need is one.
Yeah. I just anyway. Actually, let's look at the opening from the U.S. opening and frame that.
What time do we want to use? Do we want to use the equities opened, or do we want to use the metals open 8:20 or 7:20 7:20 Eastern?
7:20.
7:20 Central. 7:20. So
Yeah,
7:20.
yeah.
And this is why someone had asked, why did I use 5-minute ranges on gold? It's because 20 is not divisible by 3. So I have to decide which candle I'm going to use. So we'll go with.
All right. Well, that was sloppy. It was just interesting, but yeah, that was sloppy. Look at that.
A second. My bad, coach. That's the wrong candle.
Go do some push-ups, sir.
Let me pick a worse one for you. This one's maybe even worse.
You know what?
That's
Let's just go with the 7 o'clock. The 7 o'clock candle. That's my.
That's what you
with
okay.
metals. And one of the things with metals versus equities, metals are trade 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every 365 days a year. It never stops. It's like crude oil. So it doesn't have the opening range is a little less intense in volume.
I was going to say, do we want to consider the open whenever we see volume start to kick up? Right, where we have
that's something to think about.
Right.
Yeah, because I don't think the rest of the world is waiting for that 7:20 open. Maybe when it was just the pit. But I mean, we have access all the time. But I was just interested to see how that collapse happened, and boy, that did not. That was hard. There was there was buying. Once again, getting under VWAP twice. don't fade that, because if it was versus overnight buy, it never got under VWAP. So something to look at, and remember in your trading. So
Great trade, coach. Way to not allow that opportunity to slip by. We talked about it yesterday, how good of a setup it looked like just coming off of that 200 moving average, and just getting in the trade because it looked like a good one, and then that 200 giving another opportunity to
Jesus, it
potentially set
just
up the
bounces
same trade
along that.
again.
Yeah, that's wow. That perspective, yeah, I'll be watching it tonight. Um, darn.
Let's move over to the energies. We're gonna do crude oil, and then I do want to talk about nat gas, because it was the biggest percentage mover on the day. Here is crude oil. Looks very similar to that platinum chart,
Yeah,
where we had the urgency in crude last night as well. Not as
and
urgent. Go ahead, coach.
and look, it was the same. And as soon as when just before New York opens, trade's over. I've been noticing that pattern. Um, why wait to give it back? But even on this one, if you bought it off of this, you take a 2-to-1. That's a good trade. Right? Just I wouldn't be. That's the beauty about doing some micros or minis. You could do, instead of a big one, do two. You can get one off at 2-to-1, and you have a free trade if you move the stop up to unchanged. So let's go deeper into that, Coach. Take it over.
So I'm looking at this 30-minute opening range. We did open up near a major level, $71 even. Pull up the moving averages real quick. We were above the 200 moving average on the 30-minute, with the 20 trending, looking like it wanted to trend higher than the 50. But then if we go into this opening range, we tested below 71. There were no sellers below 71. Price pops right back up. Not as urgent as that platinum trade, where platinum was leaving this range in the first half an hour. But as soon as we start to get into the Asian session, we get closes outside the range, volume leaving the range as well. Just a really nice trend day up. We did have some traders talking about, taking this crude oil trade during slow markets last night. And my one question was, what would be the target to the upside? Because if we really wait for this volume confirmation, right, we may not be getting in until 71.30, 71.40-ish. Now, how much upside room is there available? Looking at this, and you guys probably remember this in crude, but we were, doing at the buzzer. This is 3:30 Central Time, and we get this massive sell-off. Where did we reject today? To the tick, 50% of that sell-off. And whoever sold this, the way I'm reading this is whoever sold this is still selling this, right? They're defending this position and then not allowing buyers to push through it. And it's just crazy how often we see this happen. The market kind of tests these equilibriums of these huge imbalances and reject. So really
And
nice
boy,
sell.
did it
Yeah,
rejected hard.
yeah. What a move from there. Pretty
Yeah,
much right back to where it came from. $2.50 down from that point.
and right back to where we started January 1st, I think.
Yeah. Really, really nice moves in crude still. If you're a range bound trader, identify the extremes of the range. I would say this was more of a intraday trend, and a trend in
Yeah.
both directions, where we had a point and a half to the upside and 2.5 points to the downside. So definitely more opportunity than we've seen in other days in crude. Let's say you weren't trading, because this all happened again before the upside happened, all before 6 a.m. Central Time. Right. So now, when most of us are trading, we consider, maybe 8 a.m. Central as our start to our day, unless you are, an overnight trader. but here it is here and still presenting some opportunity to you, but a lot of the bigger move happened already. But if we go to 8 a.m. Central Time, we look at the that opening range, 3-minute opening range, 8 a.m. Central. We trade above it. Volume doesn't go with it, and a fade. So be careful preempting trades like this. I took a trade in that practice account on this segment with Deanna and Paul H. And we talked about a gold trade that didn't work out. And I said it when I put the trade on. I said this trade probably will not work out because I'm preempting volume leaving the range. Now, you can do that if you think it's going to happen, but remember, especially and I'm reminding myself of this, if it's a volume confirmation trade, you have to allow volume to confirm, because otherwise you're hoping that uh, there's a presence that comes in and supports that trade idea, and they just may not. So uh, be conscious of that. We rejected right at 71.50, no buyers, and gave these sellers an opportunity to come back in.
Well, you hit a word there, hope. It's a 4-letter word. As soon as
Yeah.
you hear that, at least I do. As soon as God, I hope this, get out. There's no hope in trading. There's, which I just, in my experience, hope means I'm holding on to something that I shouldn't, right? I just, I had yeah, well, I'll give you a story. Once in my younger days in a pit, I had a trade on that was really, I should have been out a long time before I was taking a beating. I guess you could see it in my face. And a friend of mine, an older trader, came out. He looked at me, goes, "Oh," he just see it in my body. He's like, "Oh, you're holding something, huh?" I go, "Fuck you," kind of like, leave me alone. He goes, "Yeah," and you're praying to God, please get me out. I swear, if I goes back to even, I'll just get out. He goes, "By the way, got it. God is perfect. He's on the other side of your trade."
It's not a great feeling. That is not a great
Yeah,
feeling.
I was like, so if you find yourself hoping and praying when you're stuck, just get out and preserve your capital and walk away. I, it never works.
Really nice move in crude, presenting some opportunities and expanding some of that range that we saw, chop earlier in the week. So let's see if it keeps going. Let's move over to nat gas. Actually, we got a bunch of questions in the chat. Let's go to those first. Um,
Yeah.
how long do you keep
Someone
those?
was, oh
Go
yeah,
ahead,
you
coach.
go with that one. Yeah. No, you
Ryan
start
Chung.
with the,
How long do you
yeah.
keep those anchored VWAP? No, you have mentioned it in the past that you anchor VWAP to major news, highs and lows, but how long do you keep it on your charts? Uh, it depends. So the monthly and the weekly, they stay on the charts. Uh, and event based will stay on the charts until it's kind of a discretion thing where it's just like, okay, this is played out. If it starts to flatten out, then maybe I'll use it less, because there's probably a more recent time frame VWAP that I could use. Uh, so yeah, if they start to flatten out, kind of, you know, maybe the market's not responding to them as well, we kind of just breaking through it, then I'll take it off. And you know use something more recent to take trades off of. But some of the higher time frame ones, if it's a CPI, if it's a monthly VWAP, those are going to stay on, because we see how often the market revisits those and then acts as very strong levels. Was another question you wanted to get to, Coach?
Yeah, someone's asking about during your career, do you remember how election weeks typically act in equities? Being that this is my first go around during elections, it would be nice to hear from a pro. Oh, thank you. Um, Two things: it can be very volatile, and what I mean by volatile is long, big ranges without direction. Um, it's all based on news, um, and if you're new and you haven't been through volatility, you might want to step aside. This This one could be vicious, um, but it's a good question. Preserve your capital. If you feel you want to trade it, go down to 1 micro. Keep your stops in. So that weekend, this promises to be kind of wild. I would maybe, if my advice is sit out that week. And if you feel you want to get in, go down to 1 micro. Pay attention to the volatility, because if your stops are really tight, you're going to get stopped out a lot. And if your risk management is improper, you're going to get blown out. So that's my advice. And there's going, this one promises to be very volatile. Might want to just sit out. Overall, though, elections, if I put a monthly chart on and the equities, it doesn't matter who's president. I'm just going to make this. Politicians love to take credit for the upside and blame on the downside. They don't control the economy. They don't control the market. Period. End of story. It's an economic. And I mean, look at that. I mean, if I remember, and I say that I started in 1980. S&P was at 200.
Bunch of different presidents since then. Bunch of different geopolitical events that have happened since then, and if you zoom out long enough, the markets do just go up.
Yeah, it's designed to. So back to that question. My advice is to step away for at least the first week. Don't trade election night. Absolutely, I'm not going to. If that's the case, I'm going to put on. Volatility is kind of cheap, so that's when you brought that up. I can trade options. I'll probably do some an option volatility trade, but I myself might not trade that week. So it's a good question. Buy gold. I'm just joking.
Listen, thank you for that answer, Coach. And I think Mohammed had a very similar question. Why do the elections affect markets? Any kind of geopolitical events have the potential to affect markets, and this is one of those. So, in the short time frame, there's going to be some volatility, especially on election day. Are markets even open on election day? I don't think so, right? Can we trade election day?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's first Tuesday of November always. Yeah.
Just
There has been calls to move it to the weekend. But I don't want to get off subject here. For all of you, just be, what's coming. And it's going to be volatile. Well, I can't say it has a high probability of being volatile. And think of it this way: market makers aren't going to be putting up size. They're not going to put up size. So it's going to be it has a great potential to be very volatile, and that volatility could go sideways.
I want to see if I can bring up last week's not last week, sorry, last election. Give me 1 second. I'm pulling it up on TradingView. Let's just look at it since we have this question. Any other markets you want to talk about, Coach?
No, I'm good.
We do that. All right, cool. Let's get these TradingView charts up here. As soon as I figure out how to do that. Where'd you go?
I'm still here.
No, I'm talking about the window.
While you're doing that, I want to answer one quick question.
Right, go ahead.
If everybody is buying volatility options, isn't that vol dampening? Well, that's just it. They're not. Volatility is kind of cheap right now. I'm surprised. And we can see we're talking from a futures point of view, and it's average true range. The average true range is coming down. It's at a pretty average price. So it's a very interesting question. I'm like, to me, it's worth the risk. But we're not trading options, so I'll just leave that. Go ahead, Coach.
Last election time, we can see on the daily we were above the 200 moving average. Today's what? Today's October 24th. Here's October 23rd. Right here, we can see some of the consolidation. It looks very similar to what we're seeing right now. Below range, below average range days, we get some consolidation. The election was on the first Tuesday, so November 3rd. This is election day here. We can see this was a 2% up day. And then the very next day, we had a 4% update on the NASDAQ. So, kind of what it looks like from a technical perspective. We are in this consolidation right now. And of course, it's not going to look exactly the same, but we've been seeing this kind of pre election consolidation. We may get some news or whatever prior to it. We do have earnings and stuff that's still our potential catalyst. But then again, if you zoom out, it just went up.
It's what it does. It's designed to do it, and it does a good job of doing that.
Yeah, it does.
By the way, think about this. Who has a 401k?
True.
Whoever's managing your 401k does what? Buy every month. It's the great Amazon River just pouring in to buy stocks. They're not going in there to sell it. Now, can we have a hard break? Yeah, absolutely. But the other thing is, I don't know. Trade in the present, get the handle on your risk, be prepared to one of the things is trade smaller, pare down your size.
I got nothing else. Let's see if we got any other questions in the chat. End of year tends to be more bullish than bearish, correct? Can we put a blanket statement on it on that? End of year tends to be more bullish.
There's spreads that are done for tax reasons. That I remember. But no, it could go either way. Seasonally adjusted, December will will slow down. Period. That's the expectation. But because volume will go down in the last 2 weeks, we know that. So yeah, one of the things that we've heard me say it before. A prediction gets me into trouble, so I don't do it. I try to, as a trader, be in the present, understand volatility in the moment, and most importantly, focus on your account and your risk and what you can afford to lose, and follow your process.
And then just again, scanning here. Here's last 2023's end of the month. We had, from November to December, 13% rally. But then look at 2022. We had a sell-off. So I don't know that you can say, anything happens for certain. 2021, we had a rally. And then a consolidation throughout the rest of the year. I remember this year because everyone was talking about the Santa rally, and as soon as December started, it just stopped.
How can Santa rally when he's busy delivering toys?
Exactly. He's nice to us all year, giving us volatility, and then we want more in December. He's delivering presents to the kids. So yeah, it's not a blanket statement for every year. And then we go back to last election year. From the time the election happened, will frame out that election candle. We checked equilibrium of that election range and never looked back at those prices for a couple of
Yeah.
years. Right.
Let's see. Coach Ball, Dantra, I heard the markets are pricing in a Trump win. Have you an indication of this? No. I don't. I haven't been looking for it either, but I could tell you they're not pricing. Volatility's pretty weak, meek here. So yeah, I don't know. I don't. I'm sure that there are being. I'm pretty sure there's positions being bought for that, but like I said, that's all buyers and sellers. Think about this: buyers and sellers have to come into the market. The if they're matched, we have a sideways market. If they're imbalanced, we're going up or down. I mean, the more I try to predict, I don't do it anymore. So yeah, that's when I used to do that. That's why I had a mantra: is I don't know. All I can control is my actions. My
100%.
actions are to execute in the present with a mind of protecting my equity.
I've been trying to be successful in trading NQ, but my risk reward ratio is not great. I can't risk more regarding wide stop loss, but the NASDAQ often whipsaws. Do you have any suggestions? This is from Joe Sams. Uh,
I got one quick one. Trade the S&P then, and I'll hand it off to you.
no, I agree with you. And you say NASDAQ. I'm wondering if you're trading micro NASDAQ or if you're trading the minis. Um, but that's a difficult contract to trade. If you're not already trading micros, do that. But yeah, the S&Ps for sure are a much better market for managing your risk.
Yeah, it's tough, and that's why I rarely trade the Nasdaq. And I trade the S&P. I'll trade gold. I trade platinum. But but the question you're at, and seriously, that's why I'm kind of blunt about it. The fact that you're saying your strategy is getting kind of whipped. Yeah, we've heard it a lot. Nasdaq's is a wildebeest. It doesn't, like Coach Jay likes says, it doesn't respect
Doesn't respect
anything.
anybody,
Uh,
anything, anyone. It does what it wants.
Yeah, and the gold could be a place. I mean, it could be in the Dow, but I would practice in another contract, another something else, um, because you're not the first one. There are a lot of people come up to this conclusion. Um, I have. I don't like to trade it.
Dee mentioned earlier that she had worked with some traders in her private coaching, and they were really good traders, but they were just trading the Nasdaq. And once they switched products, saw success. And all it took was saying, "Hey, I don't have to be a Nasdaq trader." Um, where sometimes it's not you, right? The Nasdaq is the perfect example of it's not you, it's me. Um, it is going to be crazy. It's fun when it is, and it's not when it isn't. And that's just the market, and you're accepting trading that, and you don't have to, right? If it continuously does something that you don't like, just trade something else.
Yeah. It's a great question, by the
For
way,
sure.
because we hear this a lot about Nasdaq. Um, Heck, there is, just there's no need to master one market. Get one that fits your personality. Um, and sometimes I remember traders leaving one pick because it got slow, and they went to another one and they flourished. So, like Coach just said, it might not be you. King,
Ne-
King Caesar. That's why I love NASDAQ. There you go. Excuse me. Sorry.
on your scouting report going into tomorrow, Coach, we got about 4 minutes left.
I think tomorrow is going to be much like today. Um, in the equities, I'd look for in front of Friday. We Is there no big numbers out? I think you can expect much like we had today.
We have
I'm
Canadian
looking to
REIT.
sell
Go ahead.
Japanese yen. That's on my Japanese yen as a sell on my radar.
Got you.
My
We're
scout.
coming up to that 200 moving average, about a 0.5% away right now. And if you zoom out, you can see how effective that 200 moving average is at holding the yen down. Excuse me. So I like that one as well, Coach. I'm going to be looking at platinum potentially, and maybe nat gas, because we did talk about this in nat gas yesterday, getting this move above this 200 moving average and kind of extending this. Looking at where nat gas inventories were today, which is the high of that inventory print was 29.70. Um, $3 also right above that. So looking at a potential area here, but we'll wait and see what a market presents to us. Let me check my notes real
I,
quick. Go ahead, Coach.
while you're doing that, I gotta give a shout out to Andrew, our
Okay.
moderator. Um, the NQ moves like a squirrel trying to cross a busy highway. I couldn't say it better. Thank you, Andrew. That was
Yeah,
awesome.
that was pretty spot on. Um, I have nothing else. Let's see. We did have a funded trader in Traders Canada reality TV star, Aaron Ellis, who's a funded trader. Really good segment from Aaron as well on Topstep TV today. That was 11 a.m. Central Time. So if you haven't seen that, go back and watch it. Uh, it was a really good one. I watched it and kind of uh, while I was taking a walk. Um, phone support is back online. Phone support is back online. We did have a little mishap today, but it was said that that was not our fault. It was on our service provider. But be patient with the support. Uh, I just put the number in there like a girl at a club that didn't want you to call her. I missed the digit. Uh,
867-5309.
right. 888-407-1611 is that number. Um,
Oh, we're having fun today.
we are having fun today for sure. 888-407-1611 is our number for support. We want you to call if you have any issues, and that's with
Promise I'll
anything.
call you.
If you have any issues with your accounts, you have any issues with payouts or anything like that, Coach Paul and I are not on the support team. As much as we wish we could support our community, we do that with the coaching that we provide here. But if there's anything else, make sure you reach out to our support team. Be nice with them. They keep this whole thing afloat, keep it running. So shout out to any of the support team if you're even listening to this right now. Uh, love what you guys do. I will be on slow markets tonight.
Yeah, I'll double
But
that, coach. Yeah,
yeah, the
go
support team
ahead,
is
coach.
is amazing at what they do. When I first joined as a coach, I helped when we did that switch over to one step, one rule, and I helped with some support tickets, and it was a lot. It was a lot, and they deal with a lot, but without them, this none of this works. So shout out to the support team. Shout out to Andrew Armad. Shout out to all of the coaches. And shout out to you as traders for joining us each and every day. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button on the way out. My marathon continues in 15 minutes. Coach Jack and I are going to be doing a fireside chat in Discord. I'm going to let Coach Jack kind of do his thing. Uh, if you have not heard Coach Jack before, has a ton of experience and I think is really great for everyone to hear Coach Jack speak. Um, so we'll be doing that in Discord in the next 15 minutes, and I'll be on slow markets later tonight. And that's about it. That's all I got, Coach. I'll be on fast markets again tomorrow. You got anything before we go?
Um, no, coach, get some rest when you can. You're doing a
Sure.
great job.
Thanks, Coach.
Um,
I love doing this. It's a lot of fun. I'm not gonna lie, it is a lot of work. So I just got to be conscious of. I'm remembering Dakota when he did the takeover, and he's on Topstep TV for 8 hours a day. Uh, he scaled down. He traded micros that whole week for a reason, and I think I'm gonna take a page out of his book, going into tomorrow. Thank you everyone for joining. Hit that thumbs up. We'll talk to you all tomorrow. Have a good one.
All right.